Oh.
Thank you. Thank you. Amen. Well, good morning, everybody. I'm very grateful to be here today with all of us together. This is quite a blessing. I'm an alcoholic. My name is James Oliver. And hi, everybody. Hey, Ma. Molly told me don't swear. And no swearing. And plus Martin's here, and I'm afraid of Martin. So yeah. So we're gonna. I'll tell you, this day that we're all here for me is quite incredible. My father was born north of Toronto in Orillia, and he grew up in Barrie. Yeah. I spent a lot of time in Canada with my dad. And these are his father's cufflinks. Yeah. And my grandfather, I have a map of his. He fought with the 32nd Bruce Regiment in World War I. And no. And so, but, I've been thinking that my grandfather and my dad are very happy that I'm here, And my father's alcoholic. He got sober sometime in the late 50s, and stayed sober till 73, and then drank again in 1973, and then died in 1995, January 26, 1995, with 22 more years of continuous sobriety. And I say that because when my mother and I and my sister went to California in 1973, I thought we were going to Disneyland, and then my sister later said, we almost moved to California that trip. So alcoholism, whether we know it or not, affects our lives in ways that we can never really predict or understand. And it's only in retrospect that we be able to see how this illness has affected us and really altered the course of our existence. And so the miracle of us being here today is that line in the book that says, cling to the thought that your dark past is your greatest asset, for with it you will help others to avert misery and even death. And this is the miracle of my story. This is the miracle of my life. This is a big room. Wow. A lot of people here. Yeah. I'm not a big believer in the whole drunkalog, but I will tell you that learned a lot in Alcoholics Anonymous. Learned there's not any such. If you're new and you're here, I would just share with you that I learned in Alcoholics Anonymous that there's not any such thing as a 13-year-old social drinker. Okay, so if you started drinking socially at 14, 13 years old, there may be an indicator there, but that's my story. I was a new kid. We moved into a new place, and I became a paper boy. And so what happened was there was a kind of a community pool there. It was early in the morning, and on a Saturday, and this girl came up to me and said, "Are you Jimmy Oliver?" And I was like, I couldn't even speak. And she said, "We're having a party at my house. Don't come there till 2 o'clock. Come at 2 o'clock." And I, yeah. And so I went home, and I told my mother, "Mom, I'm invited to a party at this girl Krista's house." And my mother said, "Okay, well, I think I'm going to make some." My mother's first generation Italian. She was both my folks were born in 1925. So my mother right away is going to make like macaroni for me to bring to this party. And I said, "Ma, I don't think it's that kind of party. I think I'm just going to go to this, And so the thing is, right? My dad had told me that he was a Skid Row gutter bum, which a man named Jim Memo, who died sober from Buffalo, told me that. He said, me and your father used to wake up with our pants frozen to the ground behind Dewey's Diner on Chippewa. And he said, and then we'd get up. And he said, we'd go eat out of the dumpster and then beg for money to get a drink. And I was like, that was after my dad had passed away, you know. So I didn't even know what my father was telling me when he was telling me that when I was 13 years old. He'd say I was a Skid Row gutter bum. I didn't even know what that meant. So, but I knew alcohol was bad and I knew I shouldn't drink. So if you were going to tell me that there was going to be alcohol at that party, I just would have went home. You know what I mean? So, but I'm walking over to the house, and as I get closer, I'm starting to feel like I don't really know any of these people, except that girl in the bikini. And I'm not sure that I should really go. But somehow I got to the door, and the music was pounding out of the front of this door, out of front of this house, and the door was open. And this was probably 1979, or maybe, 79. So the police were on this thing, and they were brand new. My buddy had recorded them down in Syracuse, my friend Peter. So this music was pounding out of the front of this house, and I knocked on the door, and nobody answered. I knocked on the door, and I walked in. I just opened the door, and there were the kids from the back of the bus that I didn't sit near. I would never sit past the first 4 rows of the bus, you know. I get on, sit right there, and these are the guys from the back of the bus. You know what I mean? And they're all sitting around in bikini, the girls and these guys from the back of the bus, and they're like, Jimmy Oliver's here, Jimmy Oliver's here. And I didn't know they knew my name. And Krista's sister, Val. Now, I'm a kid that, you know, smaller than everybody else, just brand new to this neighborhood. I was a newspaper carrier. I had no friends. And I had some things already going on in my mind that, you know, the problem is in our thinking, you see. And so I figured that we lived in the slums of Ransom Oaks, okay? There's no such thing as the slums of Ransom Oaks, okay? That's the first thing. But in my mind, our place was much smaller than everybody else's. My mom and dad didn't look or act like everybody's mom and dad. All these kids that I would deliver their papers, right? Every house seemed to be bigger than ours, right? And I'm delivering papers, and all these moms are real put together, you know? My mom didn't look like their moms, you know? My mom was born in 1925, and my dad was much older than everybody else's dad. We never had a new car, you know? One time I asked my dad, Dad, why do we never have a new car? And my father, he's about this tall, Scottish, very tough. Joined the Canadian Army when he was 17, and then stayed in the military his whole life for America and the Department of Defense. And so I told him, Dad, why don't we ever have a new car? And he said, because I'm not stupid, son. And I didn't know what that meant, you know. He didn't say too much, you know, at certain things, you know. But so I had a lot of insecurity. I just didn't fit in. I was not fitting in, you know. So I walk into this place, and Valerie hands me a glass. And in this glass, it's clear. It's a glass. There's ice in it, and there's a lime in there. She hands it to me. I drank it. I drank half of it down. Everything gone. Every fear I ever had, every insecurity I ever had, the idea that my parents don't look like other parents, the idea that our house is too small, the idea that I don't have any friends. That moment of my life, if you're new, what you need to hear is that I was going to chase that moment right into the grave, and nearly did. I nearly chased that moment into the grave. That was when everything for me became clear. And what was clear was I love to drink. And that's pretty much my story. I love to drink. I love to do everything that goes with drinking. And I've heard that people in meetings say, my worst day sober is better than my best day drunk. That is not my experience, okay? That's just not my experience. That was a great day, okay? That was a great day. And those guys from the back of the bus and these girls and that was a great day. But in sobriety, I've lost both my parents in sobriety, went broke in sobriety. I'm not trying to start a ton of organ music, you know what I mean? But my second wife did pass away from stage 4 pancreatic cancer while I was sober. She died March 24, 2015 in my arms from stage 4 pancreatic cancer, and I was divorced in sobriety. I've lost friends and family members in sobriety. So no, my worst day sober is nowhere near better than my best day drunk. That's not the truth for me. But I do know that I was able to not drink one day at a time from, that's probably, my sobriety date's October 18th, 1994. And, that's okay. Yeah. And, Bob Seeley taught me, he died with over 60 years of continuous sobriety. And he taught me that if you and I don't drink today, we're both tied for first. And the newcomers need to hear that. We are all in a one day at a time way of life. And this one day at a time way of life is one that I don't understand it when I first get here. I don't understand what I'm doing here. And I didn't for quite a while really understand what I was doing here. But I do know that from that day at 13 years old until when I came into Alcoholics Anonymous, which was sometime after October 18th, 1994, my life was what I would call unconventional. Let's just say that. It was unconventional. Unless you're alcoholic, then 3 DWIs, 2 trips through the windshield, always in and out of court, always shackled up, always cops chasing me. The thing about the mental illness of alcoholism and the malignant ego, I think, that causes alcoholism is that my ego is always trying to reconstruct itself in a way that gives itself primacy over my intellect and my spirit. I thought a lot about this, and Dr. Harry Tiebout, he writes an article called Compliance versus Surrender and the Nature of the Alcoholic Ego. And that article really revealed to me the idea that my ego is constantly in a place of trying to give itself life. And the thing that I realized is that even back then, so when you're shackled to other guys, for fighting or getting caught with whatever, there's a knack to getting out of that van, because you got the shackles like this, and then it's to your legs, and you're shackled to the next guy. So getting out of the van, it takes it's a knack. And you could tell the new people, and you could tell the people that know how to get right out of the van. And I was kind of, proud of the idea that I could get out of the van, you know what I mean? Now that's insane. That's pathetic. That's pathetic. And this is what alcoholism does. It just keeps creating these new what I would call bottoms, and somehow we're at the bottom, and it's like, it's pretty nice here. I'm at the bottom, and then the really weird thing is you're somehow not at the bottom, and I'm somehow better than you. So this is hopeless. My situation's hopeless. I'm beyond human aid. I mean, right now I'm beyond human aid. This is a big room. I really don't even know what I'm talking about. So I'm glad this is recorded, because so 13, drank, kept drinking, all sorts of consequences happening. These DWIs, crazy stuff. And then, so the short story of all that is, October 18th, 1994, I'm on the east side of Buffalo, and that started after, I was at a black tie wedding in Chicago, at my friend Mark's wedding, and, Mark is actually a social drinker, and there are social drinkers. And the one thing I would share with the newcomer is, when I tell these people, a lot of people, that I'm an alcoholic, all respect, it doesn't matter what it means to any of you. I've got to know what it means to me. If you're new, you've got to look yourself in the mirror and say, what does this mean to me that I'm alcoholic? And what it means to me is that when I put any alcohol into my system whatsoever, something happens in my physiology that does not take place in a social drinker's physiology. I am not physiologically the same as a social drinker. That will never change. That will never change. I am physiologically dissimilar from social drinkers. What are some indicators of that? I don't think Mark ever went through the windshield of his car. Okay? Another indicator is, if you're new, is you're in an AA meeting right now. And I know my buddy Mark never has been to an AA meeting. So this wedding that I was at, where there was an open bar from 2 o'clock in the afternoon at the Fairmont Hotel in Chicago until 5 o'clock on Sunday night. Open bar for all the people at the wedding. So when Mark's Uncle Paul told me you went from neurosis to psychosis at 1 in the morning on Friday morning, I thought that was a compliment. So, but the fact is, I walked out into traffic on Michigan Avenue. That was a suicide attempt. See, I didn't know that at that time, but that's a suicide attempt. And the newcomer, if you're new, what I've learned is the first drink is a suicide attempt. Don't ever forget that. When we're in a meeting and the relapser's coming back and, hey, good to see you, and listen, we want to be supportive, and we are supportive. We're here for the person that's coming in and out. But if I am talking to you right now and I take a pistol off my ankle and put it to my head and click it, I hope you're going to be like, hey, whoa. When the person relapses, that's serious. And we have to talk to that person about the idea that that was a suicide attempt. And that if something is going on that this person cannot understand what's happening, it's our job to try to get that person to know that the first drink is never okay. And that the idea that somehow it found its way into our lexicon, that's probably my opinion, through rehabs, that relapse is somehow part of recovery. I'm not sure that relapse is connected to recovery. My recovery is connected to the idea that I've abstained from alcohol. Abstinence is very closely connected to my recovery. Very closely connected to my recovery. And the idea that, what I see occasionally is that somehow someone is trying to tell their story through these relapses, and that's exceptionally dangerous. And we have to try to reach these people. And so the notion that that was a suicide attempt in Chicago that day. So fast forward about 10 days later, from a black tie wedding in Chicago to the east side of Buffalo, and conversation with 3 crack dealers who, what's the story of that? Got to keep it to alcohol, so I'll just simply say that that's where the first drink takes me. Where will the first drink take me? You know where it will take me? Anywhere it wants to. Take me anywhere it wants to. That's where it took me. One thing led to another. So my dad, he worked in the government and had me in martial arts since I was about 10 or 11. And these 3 guys, they didn't know that. So they sent somebody back to assassinate me, and that's how I got here. I got shot through the back on the east side. A guy shot me through the back with a 9mm pistol. And that was after 3 DWIs and all sorts of indicators that I could not drink safely. And so I had to drive us to the hospital, shot my buddy Steve through the leg. It was Steve's fault, by the way, that whole morning. And so yeah, and actually my father choked me. And I end up in the hospital, and my dad showed up, and he had a raincoat on, and I got scared. They just had taken the tube out of my throat, and I spent a lot of time afraid of my father, and I don't think that's his fault, my dad loved me very much. But he came to the hotel room, and into the hospital room, and of all the things I could have said, I just got scared. I said, Dad, it wasn't my fault. It's not my... And he was across the room and had me right by the neck. Like this. And he said some things, essentially, I've had enough. That was his. And Carol, who was with him, hopped on his back and said, Jim. And I saw my dad. He looked back at me. He brought me a rubber ball to squeeze and the book Living Sober, that yellow and white book. And he left. And so then I got out of the hospital. Crazy thing happened. It happened October 18th. October 28th, I got out, and this brain was telling me, how come my buddies aren't calling me for the Halloween party? That's a little unusual, And I was in the basement, and this voice said, well, if they do call me, I'm not going to drink. And then this voice said, maybe I'll smoke a joint. And as the Lord is my witness, I felt a thing that said, who said that? Because my dad almost strangled me. I had 28 staples still on my belly. I still got the tubes draining me out. It's connected to a shirt of mine. And this voice tells me that, and that scared me. That really unsettled me. And I didn't think I needed to go to a meeting. My father called me on the phone and said, son, you thinking about going to any meetings? And I said, no, Dad, I think if I go to meetings, it'll just blow it out of proportion. See? Crazy. And my dad, in his, way of few words, said, you're shitting yourself, son. I'm trying not to swear. And he hung up on me. That's all he said. And he hung up. I was like, hello? So a room service waiter where I worked, Ken H., he's still sober, thank God. He called me on a Friday night and he said, hey, we all heard what happened. There's an AA meeting right around the corner from where you live. I'd like to take you to an AA meeting tomorrow. I said, no, I don't think so. I appreciate that, but thanks anyway, man. I think I'm going to be okay, but thank you. And he hung up and he called me Saturday night and he said, that meeting is tomorrow at same time. I'd like to come to get you to the meeting. I said, no, thanks, man. I appreciate the call. But he told me, in that case, I'll see you tomorrow. And he hung up. And that's pre-cell phone. And I thought, didn't he hear what I said, I'm not going. I said I wasn't going. I couldn't call him back. I didn't know his number. He just was a room service guy. We didn't really know each other. And the one thing I did know was that if I told you I'd be at your house at 10:15 on Sunday morning, you could be sure that I wasn't going to be there. So I didn't really think that Ken was going to be at my house. But he showed up. And what happened was on Saturday, so that Friday he called me, Saturday afternoon, I worked as a waiter in a hotel across from the airport on Genesee Street in Buffalo. It was owned by the Cosentino family. At that time they had 7 hotels, about 3,000 employees. I was a busboy there. I became a waiter. It was a really good job. And I would wait on them and groups of people that would come in, and they sent a fruit basket to my house that said, get well soon, and that scared the daylights out of me. Because with the Cosentino brothers, that could mean you're fired. And I couldn't believe they sent that, and I was like, oh my God. I just was like... So now, the college student, the kid getting the hardworking kid getting a degree in international business at UB, making mortgage payments on a house, great waiter, always helping out, right? That's not congruent with the guy on the east side, right? So now the curtain's getting pulled back, and I feel like these guys could know that I'm not trustworthy. That scared me. Then another basket showed up from Niagara Falls with these other customers that would come to the restaurant, and I was like, oh my God. So, get well soon, and it had so my brain, he shows up. I guess he was pounding on the door, but I couldn't sleep. If you're new, you're not going to be able to sleep. So I would eat ice cream and watch movies till I couldn't sleep. And finally would pass out. So he was pounding on the door, and I didn't hear that. He was beeping his horn, and I gave the old, remember this one, out the thing like this, It's going to pull the curtain back just a little, just see what. I'm like, oh my God, it's Kenny. So In my brain, I thought, they sent him here. The Cosentino sent him. I better get in that car. That's how I got to that meeting. That's how I'm standing here today. The paranoia and what time is it? What time do I shut up? I don't even know. Oh, 20 minutes left? All right, cool. All right, all right, thank you. All right. 25? Okay, 25. All right. So that's how I got in the car. And I'll tell you, the car didn't even warm up. It was in the ECC cafeteria. There were probably, I thought that was a big meeting compared to this is a big meeting. But the room was packed, and I was so disoriented that I knew we were in the ECC cafeteria, but then I thought, well, I guess I'm in the wrong place. I guess school, but it's a Sunday, right? I just was, the old timers, Ray OK knew my sponsor Chuck B from Buffalo, and Ray OK came to Buffalo, and he talked about the idea that when you're new, they called it MOCUS, and it just means not in a good place, and so I didn't understand what that meant, but I was MOCUS. I just was, yeah, and all of a sudden Ken reappears, and there's a cup of coffee, and he puts it in my hand. And I realized this is the meeting. We're in a meeting. He sits me down. There's a guy, Charlie Cohen, God rest him. He had this crazy smile on his face. And he said, I didn't get in trouble every time I drank. And I was like, yeah, me neither. Yeah. And he said, but every time I had been in real trouble. And he said, a jackpot. He went like that. And he said, I had been drinking. And something happened. In that moment, I began to connect that last incident and some other stuff that was going on with drinking. And I went to that meeting, and I kept coming back. Just keep coming back no matter what. Keep coming back. And without trying to editorialize, the one thing, if you're new, right, I'm hearing in meetings so much of, especially the young people today, of what they're thinking and how they're feeling, I have an illness that centers in my mind, so I can't always guarantee my thoughts. My perceptions are not accurate. Also, not just because I'm alcoholic, but because I'm a human being. We don't always know what is accurate. And my emotions change like the weather. Also because I'm a human being, and sometimes because I have alcoholism. You know what I mean? And the Scottish and Italian thing. You go from placid to homicidal. Like that. So, there's a lot going on. You know what I mean? But the idea is, right, all what's happening is I'm hearing that, what they're thinking and how they're feeling. That's irrelevant when it comes to alcoholism. That's irrelevant. It doesn't matter what I think or how I feel about being physiologically dissimilar from social drinkers. That's irrelevant. What's relevant is, what am I going to do? What am I going to do to ensure, that I don't die from alcoholism, okay? What am I going to do? Not what do I think, not how do I feel, what am I going to do? And so this is what I've learned, is that I focus very closely on what am I going to do today to ensure that I don't go insane and die from alcoholism, which is how I just say yes to AA. Whatever happens, the answer is yes. Area 50 Corrections Chair, that's pretty good. No one in my area wanted to do it. There was nobody. So at the General Service Assembly, I'm like, okay, I'll do it. And that's how I got to be. Same thing happened with Grapevine. I was Grapevine chair last 2 years before then. So Amy died March 24, 2015, right? Stage 4 pancreatic cancer. It's a nightmare. Roswell Park, I'm not going to get into that, but it just was a nightmare. I meet Chuck P., my sponsor. I got some justified resentments. Justified resentments. On a yellow piece of paper. We're at the Tim Hortons at the corner of Sheridan Drive and Delaware Road, and I got to go through these resentments, and they're justified. And the first one is our Aunt Mary, who was the nurse anesthesiology director of nurse anesthesiology at Roswell. I'm resentful at Mary because she encouraged us to go there instead of John Hopkins. And Chuck said, hold on. Did you, Mary, you mean the one that they're the glamour girls and they go to all these things and that's like her closest friend and she encourages her niece to go there and then the treatment doesn't work and you have to find somebody else? And do you mean that, Mary? Because he was at my wedding, obviously. And I said, yeah. He looks at me, he said, have you prayed for Mary yet? And I was like, oh. I'm just like, he said, you haven't prayed for Mary yet? And I said, well. And he reaches across the table, gets my yellow piece of paper, and crumples it up. And he said, I'm here to talk about Area 50, and it's dark, and you're going to be the GSR of the High Noon Group. And I'm like, what? He goes, yeah, you go to your home group business meeting, you make yourself the GSR. And I said, well, I mean, GSR, shouldn't we vote? And he goes, no one's going to even know what a GSR is. That's what he said. He goes, you're the GSR. So I became the GSR of the High Noon Group. And I start going to general service assemblies. And it was this general service that carried me through this time. You know, I became immersed in it. I was carried into a river of general service. And I'm standing here today as a result of keep on coming back. And so that those times of the what I would call evolution through the newcomer, which took me about 13 years, not to discourage the newcomers. But so I met a woman in Alcoholics Anonymous. We were pretty new. I had about 7 months. She had about a year and a half. Somehow she got pregnant. I don't know what happened. And so we then got married. We conceived another child. JF and Evan Oliver are my kids. My sons are 24 and 22. They're very, very fine young men. The program of Alcoholics Anonymous and the men and women in it taught me how to be a dad, taught me how to be accountable, taught me how to be present in their lives. Program of Alcoholics Anonymous made my 2 sons. They're fine young men. That's the facts. They're fine young men. And they hear 5 to 7 times a month. Once a cucumber turns into a pickle, it can never be a cucumber again. Okay, Dad. Okay, Dad. Yeah. And but the program, did that. And I will tell you that this evolution of that entire thing was that I learned that there were certain things in my first couple journeys through the steps that I was able to reconcile. Of course, the 8 and 9 stuff, in the beginning is simple. As we go on, I think myself kind of reconstructed itself. And I became a very, very successful, very busy, very selfish and self-centered person. And what I've learned is that I was consumed with self-centered fear, materialism, obsessed with money, power, property, and prestige. That's my story. I'd love to sit up here and take Amy's inventory, but that's not going to happen because the inventory is mine and mine alone. And the fact is that on February 7, 2008, there was a knock at the front door of my house. There were 3 police officers standing there, and they told me I had 30 minutes to pack. And that's how I knew that I was getting a divorce. So that was pretty wild. There was a divorce attorney that lived across the street from us. Her name was Jane. This unfolded in a way that was very abrupt. And the whacked out part about this is that about 6 months before then, some guys were getting the idea of having a meeting on a Thursday night at the Hope Center. And there was not a lot of people to get that meeting together. We put it together. And wouldn't you know that about 9 weeks later, I found myself at that meeting on Thursday night with my dog and all my clothes in the car. So Alcoholics Anonymous has been there for me through all of this. And I'm grateful to be able to tell you that my ex-wife, the mother of my children, never drank through that, thank God. And you want to hear about God? At my home group, what's today? Today's Sunday? Yeah, so that was Thursday. Amy shows up with banana bread at the home group. She cuts a piece. We're sitting there talking. I'm eating banana bread talking to my ex-wife. That's Alcoholics Anonymous did that, okay? Alcoholics Anonymous made this so that we can speak to each other. Alcoholics Anonymous made it so that we can exist together to raise our children. Yeah. And so we just stay close to the program. And that resulted in a financial cataclysm that rendered me broke. I mean, helpless. And I will say that until I guess I would say that I don't think I was able or willing to totally surrender my entire will and my entire life over to the care of God until I was truly helpless. And I don't think I was truly helpless in 1994, but I didn't know that till later. I could see in retrospect that, you know, after I had the drink lifted from me, thank God, I got promoted. I ended up partners with the Cosentino brothers. And that's, that was a very exclusive restaurant where President of the United States came there, all this stuff. And, then that kind of, unfolded that I ended up in another company. And Amy would tell me things like, I don't need a Rolex watch. I don't need a shaved beaver coat. I don't need cleaning. I just want you home. And I would say things like, stupid things, stupid stuff. And she had her own stuff, alcoholism is very insidious. And I would just say that the miracle is that we both survived it. And we're both sober today. And I thank God for that she's sober and my son's mom's sober, thank God. But after February 7, 2008, I was ready to listen, okay? And Chuck B took me through the steps. And I went through the step action sheets that him and Dave Falsgraf and a bunch of guys developed. And these step action sheets saved and changed my life. And I was able to see areas of my life using the 12 steps and using some questions that I asked myself where I was still depending on myself in certain aspects of my life. And so today, thank God, my main, I guess I would say, effort is in one question. And that is, what am I truly doing today to broaden and deepen my conscious contact with my higher power? All these questions, if you're new, all these questions that you will have, all the questions that we think we have, are answered by a question. And I said, how can an answer to a question be a question? I asked that to somebody. When that happened to me, I was at a Camaldolese monastery in Ohio in the middle of the night, with a guy that was from AA, who was a priest who relapsed, I became his sponsor. It was a crazy series of events. And we're at the Camaldolese Monastery in Ohio. That's like guys with the gray cloaks, the beards, the whole 9 yards. And I said, I have a question. Can the answer be a question? And he looked at me and said, I don't know. What's the question? So I said, I ran all this stuff, and I said came right to me. What am I truly doing today to broaden, deepen my conscious contact with my higher power? What are you truly doing? And Jacob said, Holy Spirit spoke to you. And I swear to you that if there's anything happening in my life that I have a question about, the answer to that question is that question. What am I truly doing to broaden and deepen and broaden and deepen and broaden and deepen my conscious contact with my higher power? And drawing near to God and the program of Alcoholics Anonymous and the fellowship, essentially coming into here, keep doing this, has solved every problem I will ever have and has created a life beyond my wildest dreams. I got married. This is Molly. Molly, thank you. Yeah. How much time? 10 minutes? Wow. Okay. 10 minutes. So, seems like time's moving real slow, doesn't it? Jeez. You know? So Molly, and I've known since 2009, gentleman in Buffalo, Carl, he ran for governor. He's a good guy. He's different, but he's the guy that brought the baseball bat to Albany. So, he's an interesting guy. Molly at the time was with Leadership Niagara. I was living in a hotel in Niagara Falls because Carl and some investors bought that hotel. And Carl's son, we lost Patrick. Carl's son fell asleep in a car on the way home. Grand Island, died in a one-car accident. The project stopped. And so I ended up living in that hotel to get the hotel open, boutique hotel in the Falls. Molly was head of Leadership Niagara. Carl told Molly, you call James Oliver, he'll handle everything. And we booked that convention into that hotel, which was Carl's wild. They couldn't even hold the convention, so we had to make it progressive, 18 stories. We had to split all the people up. So it was quite a project. And Molly and I have been friends since 2009. So she invited Amy and I to her wedding. And then Molly got married. And then I got married. And Molly was divorced and I was widowed. And so we're friends. So we get a house together in 2020. This is crazy. Watch this. Yeah. So we get a house together in 2020, right? And John Moran, who was my first sponsor. John, the one thing one thing I was going to say, about the ego, right? If you're new, and this delusion that we create around the drinking and the life that it was, that there's nothing glamorous or exciting, anything about our drinking careers or anything that went with it. The fact is, I'm a pathetic drunk. And I'm circling the drain. I'm getting ready to get flushed into the penal system. And I didn't even know that. And John Moran was kind enough to share that with me after a meeting one day. And he wasn't even my sponsor. He goes, let's get one thing straight. There's nothing glamorous or exciting about you or this drinking career you had. New York, Toronto, all this. None of that matters. You're just another pathetic drunk. And he went like this. When are you going to grow up? And he got in his car and drove away. And we have been going to ice cream. Once in a while we go to Potler's, and I'm like, are we going to ice cream? Should I still go to Potler's? I remember sitting there thinking, jeez. Then he came back on Thursday like nothing happened. You know what I mean? But that taught me. Do you know what I mean? That a lot of this is created in my own mind. And what I know now is our way of life is ordered by God in a way that I don't understand. I don't understand it. He was the one that told me to get the P.O. Box 459. Thank God I remember what I was talking about right there. God's got this, for sure. So I followed a lot of directions that he told me, even though I didn't know I was following these directions. I just kept doing what he told me after he became my sponsor. And he said, no matter where you are, no matter where you live, you get the 459 to your house. I'm like, okay. So if you're divorced, right, you might move a lot all of a sudden, And there were some different apartments here, there. I was living in the hotel for about a year, this, that. Always I'd fill out the thing. Now Molly and I got a house together, thank God. Total miracle. You can't believe that. And so now we're living together, and Molly, she goes, what's this? I said, it's 459. She said, what is it? I said, it's Bill Wilson's original post office box, Grand Central. It's like a quarterly thing for AA. I mean, I don't even read those. I'm just being honest. I look at it, right? I don't well, Molly read it, okay? She tells me they're looking for Class A non-alcoholic trustees. You think I should apply? I'm like, yeah, go ahead. She got it. I'm like, holy shit, Mom. Yeah. I mean, so, still learning how to talk to women because I said, I knew you were smart. I mean, I had no idea you were that smart. And so it was like a 6-month thing, and we were, talking about this. So this is how God works. That this way of life, that the Alcoholics Anonymous and God have done things in my life that are beyond my wildest dreams. And on page 100, if you're new, there's a super cool paragraph. And it's carried me through everything. That paragraph. Oh, we all have our favorite parts, you know? But it says, both you and the new man must walk day by day in the path of spiritual progress. If you persist, remarkable things will happen. As we look back, we realize that the things which came to us when we put ourselves in God's hands were better than anything we could have planned. Follow the dictates of a higher power, and you will presently live in a new and wonderful world, no matter what your present circumstances. Exclamation point. Now, who wrote that? You know? I think God communicated through Bill Wilson and Bob Smith for people like us. And I think of those two men, and that Bill had to move 50 times in 2 years and pass it on. And that the privation of Bill and Lois, and the idea that when he's on the train, it said, it seemed at the time to him to be of vital importance that he was set right on his feet financially. I don't know anything about what God's going to do in my life. And the miracle of my life today is I don't need to know. I don't need to know. I just need to know that God loves me. I need to know that AA works, which AA does work 10 out of 10 times. AA never fails. It can't fail. It was designed by God for people like us. It's flawless. And the people that are not getting it the first time is simply because they're not following the directions. And so these directions are flawless. And I know that for certain, this way of life is one where the miracles that are available for all of us, the speaker said, we all have our own set of miracles. He said that the day before yesterday. And that this way of life is so stunning, you know, that there really are no words. There really are no words. Although my cousin Ricky, we're partners in this restaurant, he tells me, well, Felix, you'll try to find them. But there are no words. 5 minutes? So thank you. So there are no words for our way of life. But I do know that this theme of keep coming back, there were days when I went to 4-5 meetings a day. There was a morning I woke up, I didn't know what to do except walk to my home group and make coffee. I didn't know what to do. That was at 13 years without a drink. I had no idea what to do except just go to my home group, make coffee. This program has saved and changed my life, created the lives of my 2 sons through God's grace, and allowed me to be of service to our other children. Molly has 4 kids. And also we have another stepdaughter from Amy who passed away. And so all of us together, we have quite a tribe there, you know. And God's in the center of it. And He controls our lives and guides them in a way that, unless they make other plans, is very loving and very gentle, you know. So that's the last thing I would say is that I've learned that like a little baby, you know, I run into God's arms and He picks me up. And if I wriggle, He'll set me down, you know. But the difference between me and God is that God will absolutely let me tear into 6 lanes of traffic, whereas I'll just get my son by the hair. Do you know what I mean? So I have to be very conscious of not wriggling. Do you know what I mean? Don't wriggle. Just stay in His arms and let Him just kind of carry us through. And this is how probably I got to here today, and that's how I keep coming back. And that's it. I'm sure that's time. And I thank you all. Thank God for AA.